Hi, my name's Craig West. I'm the CEO and founder of Succession Plus. We are the largest business succession and exit planning advisory firm in Australia. We've been working with business owners in the mid-market to help them maximise business value and achieve a successful exit for over 15 years. During that time, we've learned a lot, we've seen a lot, and hopefully we can share with you some of our experience, some of our knowledge, and the intellectual property we use to help business owners work through what is probably the most important focus area for an owner to work on. How do I maximize the value of my business and achieve a successful exit? Hopefully this webinar helps you understand some of those key issues you should be thinking about as an owner and helping you maximize the value of your business and achieve a successful exit. In this session, I want to explore a little bit more about the various exit strategies available to businesses. There are a whole stack of different ways you could exit your business. And I think most of us don't really understand some of those options and what's involved in actually successfully completing some of those exits. My view is not all exits are created equal. Some of them are quick, easy. We won't call it rough and dirty, but you know what I mean. But they're not necessarily the best way to achieve a higher financial return. That, for example, might be transferring the business to family. As we go through the various options, which is step 7 in our 21-step process, what does that look like? There are some exit options that are primary concerns for small to medium and mid-market business owners. The typical one that everybody knows and trusts and relies on often is a trade sale. That means a sale to a competitor. Now, they're pretty common. They're easy to do. They're not the greatest way to maximize value or to get a higher multiple, in other words. One of the things we look for and think about is, how do we find a strategic sale? In other words, a buyer who will pay more. And we'll talk separately about buyers who will pay more and why in our session on strategic sales. We can also think about some of the other exit options. Private equity is becoming more popular in the lower end of the middle market. That is, we partner with an equity provider. They'll inject capital, sometimes resources, and certainly often intellectual property and knowledge and experience in running your business. And therefore, they can help you grow. They may also help you fund acquisitions as part of a future exit. Ultimately, we might look at an IPO, listing the company on the ASX or on a listed exchange. Again, that's not very common because most businesses aren't large enough to do that. It's high risk and it's expensive. The bottom line is there are a whole stack of different ways that you can get out of your business. One of the ones we're seeing recently become far more popular is employee ownership. But there's a barrier there, and that is that it takes time. So if you're looking at exiting your business in the next 6 to 12 months, it's probably not likely that an employee ownership plan will be the result. But you might want to think about that option if you have time. And if you're looking for what we call a combination exit strategy, a combination of harvest and legacy. Harvest being financial harvest, i.e. strategic sale, private equity, IPO. Legacy being passing on the business to family or a management buyout or an internal transfer amongst the partners and senior people within the existing business. Those business transitions often do provide a pretty good result. But each different exit pathway has its own structure, its own rhythm, its own complexity, and lots of preparation work that needs to be done. The key things to think about really are, what are the advantages and disadvantages for you in each of those exit options? They're all different. There's no best option or number one option. They're all different, but they have to fit you and your circumstances, your finances, your family, your individual situation, and even factors like your age and the time that you've got until you need to or want to exit. So starting to think about some of those, we can think about, how do we combine the different options? What are the advantages and drawbacks of each option? What do I need to think about in terms of, if I decide to go down the private equity road, what does it look like? I'm going to get some advantages. I'm going to get access to capital. I'm going to get some typically growth and expertise, but I'm also going to have higher scrutiny in my business, which I probably haven't had before. I'm probably going to have to stick around and work in the business for a longer period of time than I might originally want to. So there's a few things to think about in terms of trade-offs with each of these exit options. None of them are perfect. There is no best option. It's about the right option for you, your circumstances, and your business. Now, certainly you have to think about your own goals, your personal goals. Which matters most to you? Is it about getting out quickly? For example, if you're not well or you've had some sort of health issue happening, then you might need to think about speed. How do I get out fairly quickly? Or is it about legacy? Is it actually about, and we have a lot of clients coming to us now saying, I don't actually need the money, but I do want to look after my people. I want to look after my staff. I want to look after my customers. I want to look after my suppliers. How do I preserve the culture and the principles that I built this business on? That's a legacy exit. And then the impact. How do we look at, as an IPO, we know we're going to raise the profile of the business. We're going to have scale and influence. How do we do that? What does that actually look like going forward? And then the involvement. Some exits are binary, others are staged. So a binary exit means it's a one-off liquidity event. More commonly now, we're seeing staged exits with a number of different steps taking place over a period of time to make sure the exit is actually successful. So we've got several examples where clients have implemented an employee ownership plan. They've accelerated the equity through the employees, locked in their key people, reduced founder dependence. Then they're brought in a private equity partner to fund further growth and acquisitions. And then they've made a strategic sale. Now, that process may take somewhere between 5 and 10 years, but it's strategic. It's well planned and it reflects the values of the owner and typically will maximize value at the final exit point, as well as rewarding our key people on the way through. Obviously, they've all got different tax implications. How you sell, who you sell to, the timing, and all those things have very serious tax implications. So we need to think about and get really good tax advice on the way through. Have we got access to CGT discounts and rollovers and concessions? There's a lot of them out there. They're complicated. Do we qualify? How do we make sure we maximize that opportunity going forward? The tax outcomes vary a lot. And so the earlier you can plan, the better. The next thing to think about in terms of an exit strategy is who knows what and when. What communication do you have with who at what point? And so there's a question about control of information, confidentiality, and non-disclosure. We have to be careful around how we do that. And we have to think about at what times do we need to tell which people who are involved. We've got stakeholders, other shareholders, family members, those sorts of people. We've got employees who will need to know at some point clearly what's going on. But we've also got customers and suppliers and our landlord and other stakeholders that need to be aware of what's happening as well. So it's important to think about that. We can also start to think about what's the valuation look like, because all of those different exit options have a vastly different valuation expectation. At the lower end, family, friends, those sorts of exits are going to be lower multiples. Selling your database or your book of fees will also have a lower multiple. As we go through the exit options and increase the valuation, trade sale, private equity, strategic buyer, IPO, all of those things are going to maximize the equity value over time. It also requires preparation. Those higher order, to use that phrase, exit options, require a lot of work. They're much more involved. They need more preparation. They've also got both potential, but also risk. So we need to think carefully about how we prepare for those types of exits. Start to think about some key questions. And then I'm going to challenge you to think about these questions worth asking yourself about your business. What does success look like to you after you exit? How important is it to you to preserve the team and the culture within the business? Are you prepared for full transparency and the regulatory oversight that comes, for example, with a listed company? How involved do you want to be in the business after you sell? And for how long? And do you want to pass on the torch or sell it outright and exit? And again, there's no right or wrong answer here, but it's well worth thinking about these questions to guide you towards the right strategy. Have a look at those issues, but also think about the business, the valuation, and your personal goals to determine which is the right exit strategy for you and what you need to do to successfully prepare to get ready to achieve that successful exit. Thanks for joining me for that session. I hope you found it really interesting and informative and hopefully helpful for you in your business. If you want to find out more, there's a stack of resources available on our website. That includes white papers, ebooks, and other webinars like the one you've just seen. Also, feel free to reach out. I've got a team of advisors who are experts in the various areas of business succession and exit planning. They're here to help you. Feel free to reach out, touch base with one of my team. I'm looking forward to being able to help you maximize the value of your business and achieve a successful exit.